So we'll be going live on YouTube and Facebook.
Fab.
Amazing. So we are now live on YouTube and Facebook. On today's podcast, it's time to show up, wise up, and rise up with the Queen Bee, Dani Wallace.
Hi,
Former serial
Zoe.
self-saboteur. Hi, Dani. Former serial self-saboteur, having grown up on the council estates of Preston, Dani has survived the adversity of domestic violence, homelessness, and single parenthood to become a leading voice in empowerment. And she's quickly become one of the most exciting motivational speakers to hit the UK stage in a long, long time. So welcome again to the podcast, Dani.
Thank you very much, Zoe. I would love to take you around to introduce me on all of the things everywhere now. It's beautiful. I couldn't have written it better myself.
I think you did write that, actually. Okay. Dani, what are you grateful for today?
Oh my gosh, I love this question, Zoe, because when I was in the absolute depths of despair, I was grateful for the breath in my body. And I think when you are struggling to find things to be grateful for, really coming back to the fact that you've got an opportunity to put one foot in front of the other is something to be massively grateful for. So even today, my business has become really successful. I've got beautiful kids. I'm very, very lucky. We're just moving into our dream house in the next couple of weeks. I'm grateful for the breath in my body. I'm grateful that I get to put one foot in front of the other. And it sounds glib, but it's true. I am just so grateful for every opportunity that I get to keep moving forward. So yeah, I'm grateful for that this morning.
Amazing. Thank you for that. Dani, you love a good elevator pitch.
Yeah,
Tell us what you do in a few succinct sentences.
So for those of us that haven't met, my name's Dani Wallace and I'm the Queen Bee, which is an audacious statement to make. But I'm the fearless leader of the I Am the Queen Bee movement, which is it's a community of people who happen to be in business or be digging on personal development. We help each other show up, wise up and rise up. So the way that I do that, my business in that is public speaking. So I help particularly entrepreneurs, but anyone with a mission message, I help them articulate that and share that so that they can help more people. And that's what I do. And I'm just so very blessed to be able to do it.
Amazing. Dani, our previous life experiences, they really do shape us and they shape how we show up in terms of our own life and business. How have your past experiences helped you to help others like you are doing today?
Flipping heck. Everything I do is based on, so everybody's story has the potential to be somebody else's survival guide. And all of the things that I've experienced, even as I was experiencing it, I remember saying to myself at the time, if I get through this and I find that there's a way through this, I'm going to help people get through this, if it means that it doesn't take them as long. So all of the experiences that I've had, I grew up, it wasn't abject poverty, but we were very much on the breadline. Domestic abuse was generational. So if I look to the side of me and behind me, my mum, my dad, my grandparents, aunties, uncles, cousins, it was something that was inherent. And I found myself falling into the same trap. It was cyclical through generations. And it was my goal, I guess, to use those experiences to break the cycle. And that's what I do now. And I'm so very, very lucky that I have the self-awareness and that ability to be able to look at all of my experiences and say, okay, where was I responsible there? We all seem to think that life maybe happens to us, but we have a choice in everything that we do, or how we react to anything that we're served. So for me, all paths have led me here to speaking to you. All paths have led me to helping the thousands of people that I help as part of not just my speaking and my community, but the charity that I've just created, the Fly Anyway Foundation, where we help survivors of domestic abuse build businesses to regain their independence financially from a confidence point of view. So all of those experiences have led me to make the decision that my story gets to be somebody else's survival guide, and in that we all get to link arms and rise up. So there are never any regrets. I never feel sad about my experiences.
Can you share us a little bit about your experiences? You don't have to go into all the detail, because I know you've got a very colourful history.
There's a lot.
But just for the, for the audience listening, though, that don't know who you are, Dani, can you share a little bit of your story with us today?
Of course, absolutely. So, like I said, I'm from the northwest of England, in one of the smaller cities called Preston, which is just north of Manchester. And as I said, we grew up in relative poverty. We were definitely on the breadline, even if it was just a little bit below. Money was hard won. It was hard worked for, and very little in terms of, how hard you worked did not necessarily correlate with how much money that you earned. Everybody had the nose to the grindstone. It was quite chaotic as I was growing up as well, because I was saying to you about that generational domestic abuse. It meant that cousins would often come to live with us. Our house was like a revolving door of essentially foster kids and foster cousins that would come and stay with us. And all the while, things were chaotic between my mum and dad. So when I got of age, when I say of age, 16, I decided essentially to run away with the circus. I didn't run away with the circus quite. I found that I could sing, and so I moved abroad and travelled abroad and sang all over the world in different productions, hotels, resorts, and what have you. But it wasn't a proper job. People like me, from where I come from, didn't go and work in entertainment. So I was always seeking this sort of external validation all the time, from audiences, from friends, from drinking, all of this. And there was this kind of quiet whisper from home: you need to come home and put down some roots. This isn't a proper job. Even though I was working all over the world, I was in a beautiful experience. It wasn't a proper job. So with that in mind, I came back to the UK, and I thought, well, if I want to do things properly, and if we think about the way that things are done properly, you go to nursery, go to primary school, you go to high school, college, university, you get a job, you get married, you have kids, you have a career, and then you retire and die. I was like, I didn't really subscribe to that way of thinking, but I thought, if I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. So there was like this husband-shaped hole that I filled with the first agreeable person, and he wasn't necessarily the right man for me. However, we got together, we got engaged, had a baby, we bought a house, and I got a job. And 2 weeks after we sent the invites out to our wedding, he woke up and just said, I don't want any of this. And he just left, which left me feeling really vulnerable. And from that kind of cyclical behavior, in my vulnerability, I would seek validation from external relationships. So I fell into a relationship very quickly afterwards with somebody who turned out to be a narcissist, somebody who turned out to be a perpetrator of domestic abuse, and he carried his own baggage with him. That we were like terrible, terrible magnets. And that ended up with a court intervention, and there was an injunction in place, and we were able to sort of untangle ourselves from each other. Well, it left me with 2 kids under the age of 4. So I had this great career on top. I was working in corporate, doing leadership training and presentation training. It's brilliant, but all underneath, my personal life was in tatters. So I had a real knock on my mental health, because I was living in this duality, this trying to hold on to my job for dear life and pride, and then underneath, my relationships and my friendships were through the floor, and my finances, so much so that very quickly after that, we ended up being homeless, me and the kids, and we had to sofa surf with our support network. And that really took me to a real low point, whereby I was, with my job, because it was a brilliant job, I was having to go to and from Preston to London a couple of days a week. And my mum would have the girls, and my sister or my friends, whoever was helping me at the time. And I would tuck the kids into bed. I remember sitting in the car. It's like something out of the movie. It was raining outside. And I remember not knowing, after I've left the house, had I kissed the kids goodbye or goodnight. I didn't know. Because I wasn't making any good decisions. I wasn't taking responsibility for anything. I was allowing life to happen to me. I wasn't even bothering trying to fend off the punches anymore. I was just rolling with them. Life was just washing over me. And I was crying in the car, and I thought, God, you've got a choice here right now. You either leave, or you stop allowing life to happen to you, and you start happening to life. And that's the decision that I made in that moment. And then from there, started to rebuild my life. Things like asking for help, even doing more personal development, and allowing myself to piece myself back together, but taking that responsibility for my reactions. If I say to my kids now, your reactions dictate your outcomes. And my reactions weren't the best because I wasn't strong enough or self-aware enough or in love with myself enough in order for me to be able to take those steps forward. And that's kind of brought me to today. I started to piece myself back together and started singing full time again, and built the I Am the Queen Bee movement, started really pushing the public speaking, and it's just snowballed from there. And now we're just about to, like I say, we're just about to move into our dream home, and yeah, life is good again, which is really nice. It's a nice spot to be in.
Take us back to the early days, Dani. I'm really interested in knowing where that confidence came from, because I'm from the north as well. You're from the northwest. I'm from the northeast. Mm-hmm. So I know what it's like to grow up with not a lot of money, and it can be quite depressing up north sometimes. I was also a social worker for many years. Gosh. And I worked in the northwest as a social worker. I worked in Liverpool and I worked in Lancashire. So I used to do Accrington, Preston, Burnley, all around Lancashire. I worked as a child protection social worker for many, many years. Mm-hmm. So I'm very kind of familiar with the disadvantages that people experience, and a lot of, how, a lot of kids just don't recognize that they have self-worth. A lot of children that come from families that are not kind of relatively well off or quite dysfunctional, they don't see that self-worth. It can often take years and years of kind of work themselves and bad mistakes for them to recognize that, which from what you're saying, there were lots of bad mistakes, but for you to initially kind of think, right, I'm worth a lot more than this, and I'm going to start a career in singing, and I'm going to leave the northwest, and I'm going to go and work on the cruise ships. Where did that self-belief and that confidence come from?
The thing is, when I was in the younger years, that wasn't confidence. I was in, if you think about stress responses being fight or flight, I was running away. That's what I was doing. It wasn't a confidence thing. It was I was the youngest of all at that time, all of the cousins, and as such, it'd been very busy. I would have to shout the loudest in order to be heard. I had to make myself the biggest in order to be heard. So I became the performer, and that's where I found my role. Whereas actually underneath it wasn't confidence; it was extroversion. It was. I would put on the confidence hat for people so that I could feel seen. If we think about human needs being significance and being seen and recognition, that's how I was able to retrieve it. It was in my noise, I guess, which wasn't that wasn't confidence. That was that. When you're an extrovert and you get your energy from being around other people, that's what I did. And I found that because I could sing, it was an easily recognizable way for me to be seen. So when I was 16, and I didn't realize that this is what I was doing at the time, I just got as far away as I could from the mess that was at home. To really, it was like the ultimate self-preservation as a child. So even though it's funny, I posted about this on my socials yesterday, that people would mistake my extroversion, people would mistake my performance for confidence, and actually underneath I didn't have that kind of self-worth. I didn't really believe in myself. I just knew that I could sing and that people would pay me to sing, so okay, well, I'll go and get paid to sing then. It was only as I got older and I got to know myself that actually that confidence started to grow, and it's a much quieter thing. That when people think of confidence, they think of like jazz hands, or they think of being loud and all of that, and it's not the case. It's a knowing, it's a knowledge and acceptance of yourself. And I wasn't very accepted of myself at all, and that displayed itself in drinking very heavily, in relationships that really weren't healthy for me, both friendships, employer relationships, and all of that sort of stuff. And it was only when I started to really know myself and listen to myself that actually I was able to trust myself to make better decisions to move forward.
So you worked in corporate, Dani, and then you went back to being a singer, and now, it's only where I've just finished reading your book, by the way, and it took me a while to get through it because I read quite a few books at the same time.
Yeah.
But I absolutely loved it, and congratulations on the success of your book. It really is fantastic.
Thank you.
It's really, really interesting read. And I've forgotten the question I was going to ask you now, and I do that all the time.
Same. You were saying, I think you were alluding to being quite quick.
Oh my God, what was I going to ask?
I think you was alluding to things being quite quick. Actually, once we started the ball rolling, things happen quite quickly, right?
Thanks for that, Dani. Yeah. Your success has been really quick in terms of you really do just get stuff done. And reading your book, that really jumped out the pages at me, because you had a goal and you set that goal and you really worked at achieving that. Mm-hmm. Is there anything specific that you did that you'd like to share with us that enabled you to do that so quickly, to get to where you are today in such a short space of time from you making that decision? Because I know so many coaches and speakers that it can take them years and years to get that momentum, especially in the online space. So what was it with you? What did you do that was different?
I think for me, I was already audience building before I realized I was audience building. So what I did started from years ago. As soon as you could go live on a phone, I was sharing what it was that I was doing, because I was a singer. By the time you could start doing lives and things like that from your phone, because I was a singer, it was interesting things to share. So I'd be more often than not putting my makeup on in the car, getting ready for a gig, and I was playing dressing room roulette. So and what I mean by that is that when you're a singer and you're driving up and down the country, you're never guaranteed the kind of dressing room that you're going to get. It might be a beautifully well lit, curtain adorned situation, or it might be a disabled toilet or a beer cellar. You never know. And I didn't want to play I didn't want to play that game anymore. So what I started to do is I started to put my makeup on in the car. So I would prop my phone up, and this was like to keep me safe as well, because if I was live and somebody tried to carjack me, or if somebody tried to mug me or something, it would be caught on camera, and then someone would be able to be alerted. So it was like a safety thing. And so I would put my phone up on the dash, I'd put my face on. And there's something very strange about people putting makeup on the internet. It's very cathartic to watch. Like, people would come along and they would watch me put my makeup on. It's very strange. But I would muse on live. I would talk about what I was getting up to, the scrapes I would get in. I would talk about personal development, what I was working on. I would talk quite openly about my anxiety. I have generalized anxiety disorder. It's something that I've had knowingly since I was about 4 or 5 years old, where my body has a stress response to things even if I could just be walking down the street and a thought could enter my head, and that could send a sort of whirlwind of anxiety, physical anxiety responses. So it's something that I've been managing for a long, long time. So I talk about it because mental health, as you know, Zoe, is something that we need to open up the conversation about. Mental health is the same as physical health. You can't be healthy without being healthy within it. So I would talk about things like that, and people would watch me Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night, Monday night, getting ready for these gigs. And I thought, well, okay, so I think I can provide value in this space now, and I want to provide value in the small business space. So then I was already showing up. So I just started showing up, but telling people to go somewhere. So I started to hold them in one spot, which is the IATQB Hive. And I always had the intention of creating a movement that was based on a quote that I saw in the film The Bee Movie, which goes along the lines of, bees aerodynamically shouldn't be able to fly. Their little wings should get the fat body off the ground. So the bee doesn't care what humans think is impossible. The bee flies. Anyway, I was like, right. So if I could create a movement based on the concept of flying anyway, then I think that's something I could get out of bed for. And that's what I started to share it. And then I started to put together a suite of programs where I could help people and allow people to network safely in a group without being spammed, and started to just put that together. And I think it happened. It looks to have happened quickly, but actually it's more like 7 or 8 years in the making. So the outward, I have a program called the Overnight Success Program, and it's a bit tongue in cheek because there are, Zoe, no overnight successes. There are none. There are people that have honed their craft for years, and then someone will like the touch paper. And for me, it was a mentor of mine, a guy called Brad Burton, and it was almost like I needed permission to stop hiding. I was bound by benefits. I was bound by in the UK we have they're called tax credits. So if you're working for yourself, your accountant likes to keep your earnings super, super low so that you can, be as tax efficient as possible. But that means that you can't earn. There was a glass ceiling to what I could earn, and it was a frightening prospect to let that safety net go. And I think once I realized how I could monetize the programs that I had, I didn't need that safety net anymore. And so then I ran, and I was running away from everything that I'd had previously, the working my fingers to the bone, singing my shoulda, coulda, wouldas up and down the UK, in empty pubs. I know we were joking about that just before, but I was running. I found myself running so hard away from my past and so much more towards what my versions of success were. It became compelling to watch. And I think that's why the trajectory has been the way it's been, is people have been following me for a long time, have known what my struggles have been. So now they can see me actually creating the life that I really want. It's a compelling watch, And also the things that I sell and then the courses that I do and the one-to-one programs that I do really, really genuinely help people. And I think that helps as well. So I've got an incredible, incredible bunch of value to give to, my clients and to my audience, and they enjoy watching the story. And I think that's just what has been the whole catalyst for the whole thing.
Let's talk about mentors, Dani. How important have mentors been to you? You alluded to, was it Brad Burton then?
Brad Burton, yeah.
What mentors have been really important in your life, and who have they been other than, Brad and anybody else?
So I didn't realize that mentors were even a thing in the entrepreneurial space. And the more I learned about successful entrepreneurialism and success for people in business, the more I found that these people always talk about the people that have shown them the way. Otherwise, you're kind of fanning around in the dark trying to make it up as you go along. And for me, I was like, I have not got time to make this up. I need to go and find people who have done the thing that I want to do, create movements, speak on stage, get paid to do it, write books, create online courses. I need to go and find the people that have created those, the best I could possibly follow, and then go and align myself with those. So when I first started on my own personal development journey, my first life coach, I guess, was a lady called Heidi Maver, the Unstoppable Woman, who had a small coaching business, but first introduced me to asking the questions that I would ask my clients. It's like the cobbler's shoes, getting I don't know if you've heard the story of the cobbler in his shoes and the kids' shoes. He would make the best shoes for the world, and his shoes would be rubbish shoes. So I started to do the work on myself, and then I was like, right, okay, so I want to be a speaker. Who's one of the best speakers in the UK? How can I follow them? The number one UK motivational business speaker in the UK is a guy called Brad Burton. Right, what does he do? How do I access him? How do I find out more about him? Well, it turns out he has live events that he does, and he has a membership and all of this. So right, I'll go and find out more about it. And he was able to see in me that fire, that real drive to make things better for myself. And he was like the one that first gave me permission. Then it was learning from incredible other coaches, business strategists, like Lisa Johnson, for example. Lisa Johnson coaching has been really key in the creation of the business side of my business, because I found I was great at creating a movement, making lots of noise and getting people excited. But what about? So she helped me put together, my suite of services, how to launch, all of that sort of stuff, the technical stuff that I didn't. I'm a creative. I don't know these things. So Lisa Johnson was really integral in my growth. And then other people, like on the periphery, books that I've read, people like Dan Meredith, for example. His book is, I don't know if we're allowed to swear, How to Be Effing Awesome is his book. And then aligning myself and making friends with these people as well, and saying, look, with Lisa, I couldn't afford her services to start with. And she was really kind and gave me sort of a very, very, very basic framework. Go and do that, come back, and then come and do this, which is what I did. So I was able to level up my investment and level up my mentors every time I implemented what they told me to do. And it's just been so integral to my success, is having those people that have overcome the things that I want to overcome, and then and then aligning myself with them, being friends with them, or paying for their services. So yeah, super important.
Yeah, despite not having the money to invest, you always seemed to come up with the money to invest in mentors. So it's obviously something that you felt that you had to do and that you valued. And I think that's what kind of maybe holds a lot of people back these days, is that they just don't have the money, and then they're scrambling around on YouTube and on the internet looking at all the free resources. But it's almost, there's that much stuff out there. Quite often they just don't know where to turn, and they just get a bit lost with it all. What was it that really gave you that survival instinct and made you think, right, I'm going to pay for this?
Well, first of all, it was low-level investments. So I didn't start my investing in myself journey paying tens of thousands of pounds for mentors. I started my investment journey with Audible. I was drinking wine, and an okay-ish bottle of wine from the Tesco around the corner was about £7 or £8, and I could get a personal development book a month for £7.99. So I was like, right, well, I'm going to swap out one of my bottles of wine this week for an Audible book. And that was my first investment, is that I would listen to an Audible, and I was driving around because obviously I was gigging. And so I would listen to the book because I'm a busy mum. I've got 3 kids. I don't have time to sit down and read. Arguably, I do if I was to create the time. But I was like, I'm busy. I want to absorb this and go. So the first investment I made in myself was £7.99 a month in Audible. The second was a low-level membership, but it allowed me to get closer access to those mentors. So for Brad Burton, it was the Now What Club, and they're around £35, £40, something like that. And then in that, you get access to the thinkings and the inner workings of these fabulous mentors. Lisa Johnson, for example, has the GSD Society. So up-leveling the investments each time allowed me to learn a little bit more. And what I found is, and what many people do find is, the more skin you put in the game, the more likely you are to play the game. And that's what I got. So I could only afford £7.99 a month at the start. I could only afford £35 a month after that. I could only afford a couple of £100 that I had to put on a payment plan in order to get to a personal development event at that next level. So I didn't go straight into investing thousands and thousands, but I allowed myself to invest little amounts, incrementally getting bigger, until then, I could put £8,000, £9,000, £10,000 on the table to get that. And every time I've invested, I've had a return on that investment tenfold every single time.
Yeah, fantastic. And I just want to congratulate you, Dani, on kind of your success and becoming, you know, just making money, because such a long time you were working so hard and just not making anything. And I've
Yep.
seen the pictures of your house, and it actually looks like a mini little mansion that you're
It's a
buying.
little
You
tiny
bought the
mansion.
land, you're getting the house built.
It's a new build. I've not bought the land. I'm not getting the house built. It's on a suburban, like a new suburban estate, but it is a new build. So I've seen every brick go
It's
down on
detached.
it.
It's a little detached house, though, isn't it? It
Yeah,
looks like you bought the land, actually, because from the pictures I can see, it looks like the house is just standing alone,
yeah. It's because it's
away
been
from
built
like
on
the
what
other
used to be
properties.
farmland. It is a detached house, but it is on it's on the corner of what's going to be like a wider estate. But it is my dream house in a quiet area. I mean, where I live right now. So for anybody that's watching, I can look outside and I can see the row of council estate shops that are all boarded up. We regularly get our windscreens put through and our tires slashed. Like, this is even as recent as the last 12 months, because the house that we moved into is the house that I'm living in now, is the house that I moved into after I was homeless. So I was very lucky to find myself in a position where I didn't have to pay a deposit to get in here. It were friends, mum and dad, that had bought the house, and they very kindly allowed us to get in here. And it's been that amount of time trying to build all that through. I think because I really did a lot of healing around my relationship with money. Money was something to be frightened of when I was growing up. Like, if somebody knocked on the door, we had to hide behind the sofa because more often than not, it was somebody asking for money, or, a high interest doorstep loan or something like that. Money was
Yeah.
something to be frightened of. You've got to pay your bills, or losing the house really was a kind of fulfillment. I was a self-fulfilling prophecy of only ever just having enough. And the whole "I am the queen bee," that statement is a reclamation of your birthright to abundance. It's our birthright. However, some of us aren't born into it. We just have to go and be a little bit more tenacious about seeking it and about healing that relationship with money. Is just an energy. It's an exchange, as opposed to something that's coming for you. And I think once I'd really got to grips with that, it was easier to make. And that sounds a little bit woo-woo, I know, and it's hard. I remember hearing people talk like me when I had nothing, thinking, yeah, all right, how can I heal my relationship with money? And like, I love money, and money flows abundantly to me, and I'll say it every day. You've got to take action against it. But falling in love with money again, and that not being dirty, was a real revelation for me. Like, I almost like, if I was to write a letter to money, the energy of money, I would have to apologize for pushing it away. I would have to apologize for not being careful with it. I would have to apologize for not welcoming it into my life. I would have to apologize for being frightened of it. That if you think about your relationship with money is like a love relationship, an intimate relationship. So then how do you behave in that intimate relationship? You spend time on it, you love it, you welcome it in, you create space for it. And that's the relationship shift. So, and I really kind of congratulate myself on making the money, so to speak, because the money is a byproduct of healing that relationship with myself, healing the relationship with it. And then once that starts to happen and I'm living within my purpose, the money's happening because, again, from being a savvy business owner, I've got a suite of products and services that are really in my flow space.
I love what you're saying about the scarcity. A question that I do have, and I'm completely on the same kind of wavelength with you on that. And I know that, a lot of us have so much work to do when it comes to scarcity. But I wonder, is it something that, can we truly kind of overcome it? Would you say that you've truly overcome it? And I guess the reason I'm asking this, it's probably from a more personal perspective. Because, recently I've been dealing with a lot of issues of like scarcity as well. Yeah. And I know a lot of that all our problems, a lot of it has its obviously roots in our childhood.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was a strange one for me as we were growing up, because my dad was successful. He was a successful businessman, but my parents got divorced when we were 3. My mum remarried. and money was really, really tight.
Yeah.
And my dad, although he did pay money, he paid very, very little.
As little
Look,
as he
I love him
possibly
dearly.
could.
And I'm very close to my dad, and he's been a great father to me. So I'm not disrespecting him in any way whatsoever. But I guess the times were different then. And he didn't pay an awful lot, but I do remember money just being really tight in terms of, I remember times being embarrassed of my school uniform, and then since then I went on and, and I'd never known what it was like to not have money because I just saved. I saved,
Right.
even though never had a lot of it, I always saved and saved. And more recently, I've got a challenging case going on. And again, which is costing a lot of money. And it's a court case. And that's bringing up all these feelings of scarcity. And I'm kind of thinking, oh my gosh, I thought, I'd gotten over that. But no. And I'm just wondering, does it ever really go away? Do these, we can work on it and we can do the affirmations in the mirror, but I'm wondering, does it ever go away? I really, really hope that it does. Maybe I've just not done enough work on it yet.
I think, Zoe, with anything, two things. One, if we're talking about money as a relationship, as with any relationship, it takes... it's like when you marry somebody, you don't just get married and then live happily ever after. It's a roller coaster. You've got to tend to that relationship, and I think it's the same with money. You've got to tend to that relationship, checking in with yourself. How are we feeling right now? Are you being savvy about it? Are you being careful with money? Is it a free and easy relationship? How does that feel? So it's that checking in, but then also new levels bring different devils. So yes, I have a multiple six-figure business, but yes, I now have massive big VAT bills to pay and massive big corporation tax bills to pay and all of that. So again, when you have that degree of success, you've got to check in again with yourself. Like, how does this make you feel? It's like when I pay my taxes now, I have to remember I've got a little happy I'm paying my taxes song that I sing when I'm paying it. I'm like, I'm so happy I'm paying my tax because it means that I'm earning lots of money. It's like, God, because I've got to raise the vibration around it. Otherwise, I'm thinking, oh God, I paid tens of thousands of pounds that have been paid that is in my bank account that I can't touch. And I've got to give it all away now. I've got to really think about, okay, I'm grateful because it means that I'm doing well and I'm being savvy with my money. So with the relationship side of things, it's tending to that money like a garden. Okay, so I can't touch that tax money. That's okay, because that's good money that's going to go and help the NHS in the UK. Or that's good money that's going to help our teachers in the UK, or whatever that money's going to do. That's me being able to give back in a way that I've never been able to give. In fact, that I've taken. So I get to give that back. So I have to, again, check in, because I remember paying those bills for the first time going, no, thank you. I don't want to pay that. But then if I'm resistant to it, I'm not going to want to earn more. So I've got to think, well, the bigger the tax, and yes, there's you could be tax efficient, and I've got my ops manager that looks after all of that, but it's every single time. And my wealthiest friends, multiple seven-figure earners, are still checking in with themselves and their money mindset. They get to six figures, then multiple six figures, and then they say, all right, well, I want seven figures. I've stopped chasing that now. And I'm looking for my measure of success is around the stability and the security for my family. And then the nice things on top, maybe a bit of travel, maybe being able to give back and all of that sort of, so relaxing around it as well. And knowing that it's an energy and it's in constant flow. When you get to scarcity, and I think now, Zoe, is a real great example of that. January particularly. So in the summer, and again, I can only speak for the UK because that's where I am. In the summer, there were these bounce back loans, and people were quite freely spending in the right spaces, especially in the online space. They were spending on courses and programs and one-to-ones, and it still felt a little bit, to those that were really in it, a bit like a party. Whereas in January, lockdown version 3.0 here in the UK, people started to get scared. People now can't see the end of this, and people are, people starting to get worried. People are starting to be very, very conscious about what they're spending. And that doesn't mean that the money is stopped. It means that you've got to make sure that you're adding value to those people. You're helping those people, not just to open up their pockets, but open up their hearts and their possibilities and their own version of success. And I think that when you're in a service-based job like I am, is being able to say, okay, if you invest this, I know that you're going to be able to make the ROI back, because we're going to do that work. We're going to help you get there. So I don't think it ever stops. It is a constant work in progress. For me, it was being just enough, just having enough to get by. So I'd earn this money and then I'd take on a new member of staff, and then I wouldn't have that extra bit. It would be gone on something else. And realizing then that then I have to have pots of savings and all of that. It's a constant work in progress.
I was watching something online the other day. I think it may have been Grant Cardone, actually. I'm not so sure. But they were alluding to the fact that even just saving your money in the bank, that is a scarcity mindset. You know, just like, counting your pennies up in your bank, because, whilst your money's in your bank, it's like hoarding and it's not earning you any money. So anyway, we've kind of like discussed scarcity a lot, but yeah, it's a really interesting subject. Really
it is
interesting. Let's talk about peer groups, Dani.
I love peer groups. I love my peer group.
Let's talk about peer groups. I know. Tony Robbins says, our lives are a direct expectation, I think that's the right quote, of our peer group. The quality of our lives is, I always say this wrong.
I tell you what, I
don't know.
There's a similar one. Jim Rohn says you're the average of the 5 people that you hang out the most with. Is one of the ones that I kind of take with me, is that if you look to the left and the right of you, and the people that you are close to, your heart friends, your business friends, your tribe, your audience, are all people that are looking in the same direction and pulling in the same direction, you can't help but be propelled towards that. If you look to the left and the right of you, and you've got people that are scared, you've got people that are in debt, you've got people that are making poor choices, then you are probably going to find that you are going to be held back. It's just the nature of what you surround your mind. We're like osmosis, it's like osmosis of energy between you. So if a prime example of this is your Facebook feed or your social media feed. If you scroll like this and you can see people that are whinging, you can see people that are negative, people that are scaremongering, people that are, hung up in the negativity of the world, and we spend a lot of our time on social media, how is that going to make you feel? It's going to make you feel pretty crappy. So then what can you do? Curate your feed. So one of the first things I did when I started to do this work on myself was I started to curate my social media feed. I would see people who, were complaining. I'd see people who were whinging, and I'd just either mute them or snooze them, or if I weren't even connected with them, I just unfriend them. And it sounds awful, but I don't have time to be held back by the what if I fall, the what if I fall mentality. Well, we're not going to do that, because what happens if we fall? I surround myself with people, well, what if I fly mentality. If we fall, that's okay, because an expert in their field is someone who's made all the possible mistakes they could have done. And that's great, because that makes them successful. They know now not what to do. If you go around being afraid of falling, if you go around being afraid of yourself and being afraid of what possible success you could have, you're not going to be successful. So if you are with people who are open to that possibility, then it can only move you forward. I tell an analogy of crabs in a bucket. If you put crabs in a bucket, one will try and escape and the other crabbies will pull it down. Will climb over it, try and get out themselves, or pull it down back into the safety of the bucket. I don't know what the psychology of the crabs are, but that's what happens. They pull that little crabby trying to escape, they pull it down. And that is a perfect example. Are you in a bucket full of crabs, or are you seeking for the people on the outside of that bucket with their arms out going, here, this is where we're going? And that's curating your circle is so important.
Dani, Be Heard is your signature course.
Yeah.
So as someone that's been talking from a very early age, singing on stage, talking on stage, what tips would you give anyone out there who do have a fear of public speaking?
There's 2, if this is helpful. So one is understanding that closed mouths don't get fed. If you don't talk, about what it is that you do, be that in copy, be that in speech. However, if you don't talk about what it is that you do, how on earth are you going to expect the world to know and be excited by, and then therefore buy from you and get your products, goods and services? If you don't open your mouth and talk about what it is that you do and share your excitement. No one I know, Zoe, is in business because they don't want to help someone. Most people, even product-based businesses, are in business because they want to help. They want to help their consumers or their clients feel great. They want to help them with their business strategy. They want to help them with their mental health. They want to help them, I don't know, write beautifully if they're selling a Sharpie. They want to help. They were not in the business of not helping. And I was on The Voice, the TV program The Voice, here on the BBC in the UK in 2014. They didn't show me because they'd already filled their spaces. But as part of the recording process, I got to sing for Tom Jones and will.i.am and Ricky Wilson from The Killers and Rita Ora. And they all turned around at the end, and they obviously they'd not turned around to get me because they couldn't. And I'm crying because that was my goal. You know, the only way that a singer over 30 is going to make it is if they do it through reality TV, is the general gist of it in the music industry. So I'm crying because that's it. I've blown it. And will.i.am actually turned around to me and he went, "You've got a gift, Dani. You can sing." Who, like 4 people in the entire of the world didn't turn around today. 7.8 billion people now in the world. And you're telling me that you're sad that 4 people said no. 7.5 billion people in the world who you are now not going, what? You're not going to go and share your gift with those people? Who are you not to? So if you're feeling frightened of sharing what it is that you do, you've got to remember that if you're not talking about what you do, the people that you are helping are going to go unhelped by you. And who are you not to? So one is understanding that actually if you don't, then you're not going to be building your business in the way that is as strong as it could be. And 2, the people who you really want to help are going to go unhelped if you don't. And that's so important. Like, we're not in business to not help people. We're in business to help people. Stop thinking about the money and the bottom line and all of that. Think about the people that you actually want to help and go and help them. And you will find that the rest of it, as long as you're surrounding yourself again with the right people and the right thought processes, will start to slot together.
There was 2. Did you say the 2 of them?
Yeah. So one is to remember that if you're not talking, you're not reaching people or building your business, and the other is to remember that there are gonna be people unhelped by you. If you want another one, I could chuck another one in because I'm quite happy to share. The other is if you are speaking on stage or if you are going to go live, what I would do is I would get a song that really makes you feel great, like the one that makes you do the embarrassing mum dancing to the dance floor song, the I'm coming out song, right? And play that, because BPM, beats per minute, have a direct effect on your energy. Sound is frequency and your energy is frequency. So if you are allowing yourself to raise your frequency before you press go live, you'll be putting yourself in an alpha state, which means you won't be in a beta state, which means you'll be able to deliver much more strongly. So listen to some music prior to doing any kind of speaking that really makes you feel happy, that lifts you up.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Dani, thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time today. There's so many other questions that I could ask you, but I'm conscious of time. We've been talking for 50 minutes already. And so, yeah, I mean, let me just ask you one more question. This is just out of curiosity. I don't know whether or not I should give this question the airtime that I am, but I was just really interested because, you know, I'm a big believer in karma, and if we don't do what's right in business and in life, then at some point it's going to come back and it's going to bite us on the backside. In your book, you spoke about an incident where somebody had backstabbed you. You shared with them an idea that you had for, I don't know, releasing some course or something, and they basically stole that and did it themselves. Was that person successful? And are they still around today?
Really hang on to that. and it could eat me up. And what I would be doing essentially is wasting bandwidth, wasting my time trying to chase justice, when actually it's not my job to be chasing justice. Like, I had this idea. The thing is that when you're showing up in your entire authenticity, there's two things to remember. There's no new news. Not really. We're all kind of saying the same things. It's remembering that it's the delivery, it's the you-ness of it that is what makes you stand out. So that person, yes, went on and took that idea and they were moderately successful with it. I've since been out and done that idea and been wildly successful with it. So it doesn't, I don't really think about it as a karma thing or karma will get that person. It's that all right, they're going to go and do that. Fair enough. I'm going to let them, because my people are going to come to me for me. They're going to come to me because I'm Dani Wallace. They're going to come to me because I'm the Queen Bee. They're going to come to me because I'm going to deliver stuff to them in a way that's going to make them feel great, that's going to make them be motivated. Is that other person going to do it in the same way? Well, no. So then I have to trust that if there's no new news and that news is helpful, that piece of information or that thing is helpful, then the people that are attracted to that person are going to be helped. Well, that's good. And the people that are going to be attracted to me are going to be helped. And that's good. And there's room at the table for everybody. You know, I can't service 7.5 billion people, so they can have it for me.
Exactly. I guess there is room for everyone. I was just a little bit curious about that, but yeah, look, you answered that really nice, and I think I'd probably have a similar mentality as you as well if that happened. Just let them get on with it, basically. But Dani, thank you so much. Thank you for being such an amazing guest.
I was just going to say, it's hard. It's a hard thing to let go of when you make that choice. You've got to be really strong and really. We talk about confidence earlier on in the podcast. It's that knowledge and acceptance of yourself. And I think that when you're letting something go like that, it's just knowing and accepting the fact that you're still really strong. You're still an expert. It's not taking away anything. And then there are processes and procedures in place. If that gets out of hand and they're stealing everything that you're doing, then yeah, for sure, then get it involved. But thank you so much for having me, Zoe. It's been lovely to chat to you.
Yeah, you too. Thank you for being such a wonderful guest. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And if you would like to listen to the if you would like to listen to the full podcast, this will be released very soon. And thank you. I'm going to end the live broadcast.